Welcome and welcome to the section Aligning Your Internal Team Behind Your Brand and Marketing. Thanks for so many to show up. I'm Jens Lundgaard, CEO and founder of Brandworkz. I'm really passionate about maximizing the potential of everybody's brands, and I'll tell you why. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So my professional background is that I worked for a number of years in creative agencies where we had big blue chip clients like Unilever, Sony Ericsson, SEAT, and so forth. And one of the things I noticed was that whenever a branding or marketing project was done, all the visuals were ready, great messaging, campaign material, and so forth. The implementation of that rebrand or the campaign was often very, very chaotic. And many of the projects would lose momentum in the rollout phase. That also made it difficult for the clients to get buy-in from the internal teams, something which is critical to building a strong brand, especially if there's a repositioning involved where lots of the employees will resist it if they don't actually understand why this is happening to them. Sometimes all the hard work would fail to have the desired impact because of two key things. No online tools to make it easy to implement the brand or the campaign, and no central resource to educate everybody involved, both internally and externally. Personally, I absolutely hate seeing good work go to waste, so I set out to create software to help solve this problem. From an overall point of view, I think the most important aspect of brand and marketing management is to be able to maintain and develop your differentiation over time. And to achieve this, I think there's three challenges. One is align and educate. So for example, one of our clients, Icebreaker, they have teams in 42 countries, mainly retail, that needs to sing from that same hymn sheet. Share and distribute. So for instance, Red Bull Formula 1, they got thousands and thousands of press and PR people that needs to get images and videos in a very, very short time span after each race. And finally, govern and automate. So for instance, Gold's Gym have hundreds of gym outlets, mainly in the US. Lots of them are franchisees, so you need to make it very easy for them to stay on brand and on message, because franchisees like to think that they're their own boss and they can do whatever they want, more or less. Not quite true. So we deal with all of these three aspects, but in this session I'm going to focus on the first one, align and educate, and specifically I'm going to focus on aligning internal teams so they understand and are able to communicate what it is that makes your brand unique and how to help build a brand from the inside and out. As I'm sure you know, a brand isn't just logos and colors and a slogan. It should really be the most valuable assets the company has. And also, if that happens, it's the competitive advantage that is hardest for your competitors to replicate. So great brands are holistic. They've achieved a high alignment across their departments behind a common set of goals and a set of values. So for a moment, let's just forget about external marketing. I know that's probably what you're only here for, and focus on the internal. By the way, I think it's certainly also true that aligning the internal department is more important than ever before because of social media. If, for instance, the marketing department is preaching about high quality, but the product department is trying to reach the lowest price point, or maybe customer services are hiring cheap, unskilled staff, this disconnect will soon materialize in social channels. And because people largely turn to social media recommendations to choose their products rather than corporate marketing, it's really important that everybody lives the brand, to use a cliche. It's simply just essential. The other day I saw a good example of what I think is a brand disconnect. Does anybody know what brand this car is? The badge is photoshopped out, by the way. No? That is an Aston Martin. I don't think it was the marketing department's best day when they were told to go and market this model, which in my mind pretty much says the opposite of what Aston Martin is about. By the way, it's still an amazing brand, of course. So, as a marketer or a brand champion, you have to get the whole company singing from the same hymn sheet, with the help of senior marketing, of course, senior management, sorry. Otherwise, you will simply be fighting a losing battle. Any of the other departments that you work in your company can pretty much dismantle most of the marketing effort you are trying to do every day. Especially if it's something that's very social. And on top of that, you have to get it done without spending all your time on it, because of course in external marketing you have to support more and more channels, so there's less and less time to do it already. So, how can you promote your brand message to an internal team and educate them about the meaning? I'll do this by sharing some stories of real clients of ours, where they have used marketing and brand technology to achieve this. But just before we do that, I'll just share with you how at my company we kind of had this problem ourselves. When I first started out, everything was pretty much just in my head. You know, I just was obviously the founder, and when we just had a few employees, I could make the company reflect what I wanted fairly easily just by ad hoc interaction with different employees. However, as the company grew, and especially when we got overseas offices, that started breaking down. You know, I kept thinking, why are these guys over there, you know, sprouting material that's just not good enough? Surely they should understand that we need to have a decent quality across the board. Of course, eventually I realized that we'd become a case of do as we say, don't do as we do. So I had to sit down and formalize our values, what our aims were. We hired a design agency to do brand guidelines, to do marketing material, and of course also start using our own software. So, case of live and learn. The first client I'll talk about is Icebreaker. They are an outdoor company selling a lot of countries, 2,000 retail stores, most of them independent. They're based in New Zealand, which doesn't help because it's a long way away from lots of the markets. All of their garments are made from merino wool. It's a highly brand-led business with an emphasis on communicating the stories behind the products, as well as its benefits, of course. So when we started working with them, they were turning over about $100 million, so they're pretty big already and successful, but they had big marketing operations problems. There's a lack of product knowledge at the retailer level, inconsistent marketing and point-of-sale material was being produced in some markets, inconsistent stories being told by the sales staff on the floor. And coupled with that, it sells at a very high price point, so a simple top is about £100 and a fleece is about 150. So for them to justify that high price point, it's absolutely vital that the brand is strongly positioned in people's minds. And a lot of this comes from making sure that the internal teams can communicate the stories and the benefit. They need to be able to communicate where the wool comes from, the sheep, the green ethos of the company, the production process, and of course the great product benefits. So in other words, why on earth would you spend £150 on a fleece when there's one hanging right next to it that's about half the price? Mind you, they do have a great product. I went skiing earlier in the year, and one of my friends, I told him we were working for Icebreaker, and he immediately shouted, "Sniff my armpit!" I've been wearing this Icebreaker top for 3 days straight, and it still doesn't smell. And it actually didn't. And that's one of their unique selling points. However, at the time, they were struggling to get their staff across all of the retail outlets, aligned and communicating the same stories and the same product benefits to maximize sales, obviously. So in most companies, it's physically impossible to make everybody the focus because there's simply not enough time to go and, for a marketing or brand person to go and speak to each one. So how can we make them focus? One way is to give employees access to a central online location where they can go and discover the information they need to understand what is it that the organization is trying to do, how should they look, how should they behave, and so on. Of course, Icebreaker's success in aligning their decentralized teams has been the creation of such a central web-based brand platform. You can say it's become their brand world. It's an online home for the brand, and it's also a training and reference resource for the entire company. By the way, our Icebreaker also automated much of the communication and the rollout of the seasonal collections, and they have about 25,000 downloads a month. And also the ad hoc requests coming in from the retailers to the marketing department has decreased tenfold because the retailers can understand and get everything themselves in one place. And that's a massive, massive difference in terms of spending a big proportion of your time on firefighting and ad hoc requests to being able to do something strategic. Also, brand consistency is increasing because the retailers, third-party retailers especially, can get a better understanding of what they're about and how to position it. So, I guess to reiterate the point, don't forget about your brand ambassadors, the internal employees, or you could even rephrase it to say, don't forget about your best marketing staff, which is the internal employees. It may seem simplistic, but sometimes we get so wrapped up in external marketing that we forget about internal. For instance, there's quite a lot of buzz about advocate marketing at the moment. So basically, what that is, you cherry pick some of the clients that just love your product and love your brands, and then you get them to essentially market on your behalf by being advocates. But it's because people trust independents more than they trust you. But it's pretty safe to say that you won't have too many of these advocates unless all of the departments in the company are providing a holistic, consistent service. You know, if there's just one weak link in people's experience, many customers will stop becoming advocates. I guess the most typical example is that you go out and buy a great product, it's marketed well, you understand it, it's differentiated, it works, it's distributed well, but then the subsequent customer service lets you down, and that will probably mean that you won't be an advocate. So the key to internal alignment is to empower your team to give them a place to engage with your brand, but create this in a very inviting manner, so you're creating a pull effect where people want to use this, instead of just pushing internal comms out to them, where in many cases it will possibly get ignored because obviously other people's department, other people's roles, brand and marketing is not top of their agenda. Just to give you a quick flavor of the return on investment that Icebreaker's had from such a system, I won't go into it too much. Since we started working with them, they now turn over $200 million instead of 100. I'd love to claim that as our work. Of course, it isn't. But certainly, it would have been very difficult to have this expansion without such a system. And the ROI from the system runs into the millions.